just want to start off by giving a shout out to our volunteer spotlight, Madison. We want to give a thank you to Ventura's for providing the hamburger meat and Roadhouse for providing the toppings. And then we have a couple birthdays this month. We have Sarah on the 3rd, Alicia on the 9th, Wallace on the 22nd, and Sherry on the 22nd as well. So happy birthday to everyone, and that's how I'm done. Okay, so hi, for the ones that don't know who I am, my name is Monica Rodriguez, and I am the community engagement specialist, and I recruit volunteers. So that's what I do. I just have a few things to talk about today. We will be having a training start in Hallettsville on the 7th, June 7th, and it will be at the Hallettsville office. So if you have anybody that's interested in that area, please let them know to get a hold of me, or you could give me their contact information and I'll reach out to them. And then our Victoria training will be in July, and it's going to be every Tuesday in July, the 5th, the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th. And that'll be here in Victoria. Again, if you have anybody that's interested, just let them know to reach out to me or reach out to them. And then I sent out a volunteer sign-up sheet. For this week, we have spots to volunteer at the Texas Zoo. Region 3 is having Texas Zoo Day. And what that is they're going to have the zoo's free practically to everyone. It's open to the public, and there'll be different booths out there. We're going to have a booth there at the zoo. So if you are able to help us, just be there at the booth, giving information as far as about CASA. Come out there. So we'll be there from 9 to 12. And then also Friday for the fundraiser. If you are able to help us out that day to set up, you're more than welcome to come. I know I sent out the volunteer sheet, but if you were able to volunteer there, just show up and we'll need help. So those are the volunteer opportunities that we have. And then that's all I have. Any questions? Thank you. Yes, we'll be doing 4 Tuesdays, just because so we can get the training. So we do the CASA College. So we'll do the training in person. Hopefully they'll do their CASA College, and then we'll meet again. So by the end of our training, we'll have them ready to go to keep this one in. So we're trying something different. Hopefully it'll work this time. Like it always works, but hopefully we're just trying something different. Any questions? Come on, Nick.
All right, so I'm Nick Solis. I'm the development director for CASA. Just a quick reminder that you may have seen this little flyer when you came in. You can scan the QR code to purchase tickets. If you would like to go to the event, we will have this event at Spring Creek from 11 to 2. Everything's pretty much ready to go. We're just looking for a fun time. So come join us for that event. You can find out more information at goldenpressatcasa.org, or you can give us a call at 361-573-3734. That should be it. Thank you very much. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy.
Micah is an eating disorder, and she requires 24/7 supervision from her caregivers. She doesn't communicate very well, but she is progressing a little more each time. She's placed in a foster home in Lively, Texas. She has some aggressive behavior. She is seeing a psychiatrist, and he's trying to help her with those behaviors through medication. And she has been in this home since she came into care 5 years ago. Unfortunately, the foster mother doesn't know if she can continue caring for her, but she's doing her best to try and continue to have her there. So we're just hoping that this will be a long-term care until we can find her an adopted home. ZE case is a 13-year-old female. She is in a Martinson Bronx, and she's been in several foster homes, but she's always continues to have issues with peers. And so this is an RTC. She was placed there recently, so we're hoping that she will get the help she needs. she wasn't being allowed having supervised visits with her grandmother, although the grandmother was allowing her to have unsupervised visits with her mother. So I don't know if that's going to continue, but see about that. Those are the two cases that I have right now. And I wanted also to talk a little bit about the training that I participated in called PACS Tools. It's a training that equips the caregivers with children who do have behavioral issues. And there's a few things that I wanted to touch base about. PACS Tools, you can go to paxis.org, and you can get more information on there. They also have training dates. If you go on that website, you can find out what training dates are available. After your training, it's an all-day training. You are get a certificate, and they also will send you the tools that you need to continue to use to implement these tools for the kids, or to help the foster parents or other caregivers to implement these tools for the kids that they have when they're dealing with behavioral issues. So I just wanted to touch base on a few little things. Like I said, when you have their training, they do send you a toolkit, and it has all the different things needed in there. This, for example, this one here is a goal mapping. You kind of sit down with the child and you discuss what their goal is. It could be short-term goal or long-term goal, and you try and let the child fill it in instead of you filling it for them. But you guide them through it, explaining what is their goal, things that you can do to help them reach their goal, and then also what things could make it difficult for them to reach their goal, depending on the situation that they're in. That's just one tool. There's several tools available. And then there's also, and I didn't bring my phone with me, there's also an app on your phone that has these tools on there. You just click on the app, and the tools are available there. You just click on whichever tool you want to use. For instance, one of them is called popsicle sticks, but they're craft sticks, where they have if a child is saying, "Wow, I hate this class," or "You never leave me," or something like that. You would put the shores or whatever it is on the popsicle stick, craft stick, put it in a jar, and let them pick. So that way it's a random thing. But there's a lot of other tools that are available. So if you're interested, let me know. Or Kelsey, I think, is going to provide that information.
Yes, I will be putting the information for that particular website in the newsletter that comes out on Friday. So if you guys are interested, just definitely take a look at the newsletter. There should be a direct link to the website.
And if anyone wants to know more about the cases that I have available, just get with me or check with Kelsey as well. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I promised Kelsey a joke, so I thought I'd start off with one real quick. There was a teacher one time. She had this little boy in her class, 8-year-old. She thought he was the dumbest child around. And the mom comes in for a parent-teacher conference, and that's what she tells the mom. You have the dumbest child around. And so the mom takes the child, they move away. 20 years has gone by, and the teacher gets sick. She has a heart attack. She has to have some surgery, open heart surgery. She's in there, she has the surgery. Everything is going well, and she's coming out of the surgery, going good. Looks up at the surgeon, he's there. She wants to tell him how much she appreciates, but she's still under the influence and such. Anyway, she's struggling for breath. She can't catch her breath. She's looking at the doctor as she's suffocating. I bet you're thinking that the doctor was that dumb little kid in her class, right?
I'm thinking, what kind of joke is this?
It's not a little plugged the middle later and plugged in the vacuum to clean up. So anyway. It's kind of hard on a spur of a moment. So as we're moving forward in this upcoming year, we are preparing for our audit with Texas CASA, which will be in April of 2023. They're going to look back at all the wonderful work that you've done over this past year. And where you document that is in Optima. And so there's been some changes made in Optima. And I know when you're making those contact notes and you hit that drop down box for the activity, it doesn't have the same activities in there that it used to. Well, we can't change that. We can't help the activities that are provided. Texas CASA has chosen these activities and they are locked in there. So what I wanted to do today just was take the first 5 options from that drop down and talk about those. And every month we're going to hit a few more. So the first one is pretty self-explanatory. If your contact note pertains to what you had learned when you attended that hearing today, you can choose that from the drop-down box. Attend hearing, and this is what I learned, yada, yada, yada. Create note, boom, you got it. That's easy. If you attended a mediation or a settlement conference with the attorneys, sometimes you attend it with just CPS, the caseworker and stuff, to decide what's going to happen at the end of this case, there's a drop down for that. If you are reviewing the case records with CPS or with your supervisor or anybody who has records pertaining to the child, you can choose that from the drop down.
What is that?
Case related records review.
Okay, I mean, what's the wording that we actually see?
Case records review.
Okay.
Yes, that is there. And then the last one I wanted to hit today was case-related meetings, child and family. So many meetings that you attend can fall underneath this heading. For instance, if you attend a PPT meeting for your child, if you attend a circle of support for your child, if you attend any other meeting where you are discussing the child and the family, that is your go-to tab. So you can choose that from the activity box and write your notes, and we're all going to know where you've been. So they're just trying to not have as many choices, but trying to make those choices encompass a lot of different topics. So every CPS office calls their meetings different things. And so to be uniform across the state of Texas, that's why they have chosen this. And then the last one is case-related meetings for youth age 16 and above. Because those children have special needs as well. They need to make sure they have a Texas ID. They need to make sure they have their birth certificate, their social security card. They need to make sure all these things are in place so that whenever they do turn 18 and leave the system, they'll have all the tools necessary to be successful. So those are the first 5 in that drop-down box that you'll see. Anytime you're making notes into Optima and you have any questions, if you want to reach out to your supervisor, I know they can guide you to the right place. Or if you want to ask me, I'd be happy to help anybody in the creation of their notes. The main thing is for the information to be available. So when the auditor opens up that file, they'll be able to see all the wonderful work that you guys have done every month since you've been working with these children and families. Thank you so much for that time. And I know those kids will never forget what you've done for them. So enjoy the luncheon.
Are we ready for a drawing? What do we have up first? Is it Texas Roadhouse or Thunder Bay?
It's Hurricane Harbor in Spring, Texas.
Okay.
No water park.
Oh, okay. What should we draw for first? What? Oh, let's get a ticket for Rebecca. Yeah, that's the ticket. I put yours in there.
Oh,
Yeah, that's in here. Mrs. Madison, our volunteer spotlight. She has a ticket, so we need to get Rebecca going. And what are we drawing for first? You pick it, Monica. Say you just put something wrong. Make it. Pardon? Hurricane Harbor tickets. That's what we're going for first. Who's online? Do we need to focus there?
Yes, we do have a link online.
We'll get you all in the drawing somehow too. And Howie, glad you all can make it. So for those Hurricane Harbor tickets. Oh, hey. Okay. First one.
Oh.
And I was also looking to see, oh, look at that little box. It's got somebody else.
All right. This is
This is what Hurricane Harbor.
Hurricane Harbor, 217346. Yes.
Well, welcome. So,
I have a.
oh, Monica will set you up. Great. Let's do one more.
All right, we'll do this one for Roadhouse. It is a $25
$25 gift card coming up.
217351.
Aha,
Right.
I think she's got a winning streak going on. Ashley, did you win last time too? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here today. Thank you all for putting together the lunch. Kelsey,
I'm sorry?
thank you for putting the lunch together. So our speaker is here today, and let's let him know who he's speaking to. If you could put your hand up if you're a volunteer. And then how about for staff folks? Do we have any visitors here today? We're welcome. Yay. Hi. Well, thank you all for joining us. I wanted to point out a couple things that I thought you might find interesting. The CASA Voice, have you all gotten that? It comes out on the first Wednesdays of the month. It's got a lot of great information. It comes from Texas CASA. I'm hoping that you'll take a look at that. They've got a great article and a lot of information. June is National Reunification Month, and there's some great information, some videos in there. I hope you check it out. And also there's something that's really important. There's millions of dollars sitting on the table at DFPS, and it's pandemic dollars, and they need to get rid of that. And it's for foster kids. If 14 to 20, they can currently be a foster or have aged out. And it's very simple to access, but they're not letting people know about this. So it's up to us to share that. That is money that's available for rent, clothing, food, transportation, cell phone. So if you have a kid who might be interested, there's a number in the CASA Wave, and it's a 512-460-7394. All they have to do is call and leave a message that identifies them as a current or former foster. So that information again is in the CASA Wave. So take a look at that, and there's great information there. We've all been busy in the month of May. Let's see, we had 180 children in care, and 21 of those children had to volunteer. So we had 88% coverage. That's really good. We're meeting our goal. We're going to have 100% soon. So there were 108 families, 12 children left care, and they were in care for 17 months to 107 months. Joy Walker, thank you for staying in there for 9 years. Seeing those kids ended up in a great placement. We had 5 children adopted by relatives, and then we had 4 children reunified, and then we had 3 children placed with relatives. That's great work. Thank you all for that. And to do that, we had Robert Padilla, Tim Parsley, Bobby Quinn, and Walter Hamilton. They don't deserve a round of applause for that one, yeah. Thank you for that. So in May, we had 63 volunteers active, and you all drove 1,468 miles to see children, and you devoted 264 hours in the month of May. Thank you all for that hard work. Good news for that travel. I was telling Esther about this, but Texas CASA is going to allow the volunteers to be reimbursed in continuing this year and next year for boat travel. And so we'll be able to reimburse you at a federal rate of 58.5 cents a mile. And it used to be a 100-mile round trip, but now as of today, they've lowered that to 60 miles round trip. So get with your supervisor, they have a form that you need to fill out. And then we also need a MapQuest, documentation showing the mileage that you drove. And we'll be glad to reimburse you for that travel that you're doing. And, Bobby Wynn mentioned Heritage Day. We did really well, thank you. First English Lutheran Church. Yes, thank you. They gave us $13,600. We were one of 5 recipients. Thanks. So that was great. In strategic planning, who knew that, it's July, it's coming up. So we're looking to July 13th. That's Wednesday, July 13th. I hope you'll join us and we'll do our strategic planning for about 2023. Good golly, 2020. So thank you all for that. Marco was going to be here today, our board president, but he's being honored for his term of service at his job. He's been 15 years, and he said, "Oh, I've got a lunch I've got to go to today." So he's double booked, but we're standing in. And Laura is going to introduce our speaker, Freddie Cantu from the University of Houston. Thank you. You know, I want to do a drawing after that.
Hello, everyone. Today marks the beginning of LGBT Pride Month. LGBT Pride Month occurs in the United States to remember the Stonewall riots, which occurred in the end of June 1969. As a result, many Pride events are held during this month to recognize the impact LGBT people have had in the world. Our speaker today is Freddie Cantu, Assistant Director of Diversity and Inclusion at UHB.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm very happy to be here to talk to you all about how to be a better trans ally. Thank you to Kelsey and to Flora for inviting me here today to speak to you guys. So I have a quick little presentation that I'm going to go over, and then if there are any questions or anything, please feel free to ask them towards the end. I do have, Kelsey, I kind of like borrow your little mouse. So
That's so smart.
I was hoping that I'd reach it, I did. So, so yeah, I'll go ahead and get us started. So just a quick little overview of what we're going to be covering today. So first, we'll talk about some frequently asked questions, mostly dealing with terminology. We'll go over some pronouns and their usage, some different statistics, as well as some tips. And then again, at the end, we'll have some questions. Alrighty, so some frequently asked questions. Again, this is mostly related to terminology. What is gender identity? Can anybody answer that question? Grab an idea. Okay, if not, it's fine. So gender identity is how people perceive their identity internet, right? So a lot of times gender is assigned at birth. You'll hear that term, gender assigned at birth, very often because there's the idea that biological sex is indicative of your gender identity, but now we know that it is not. So the next term, what does transgender mean? If individuals are transgender, that means that their gender identity does not correlate with the gender they were assigned with at birth. So for example, I myself was assigned male at birth, but my gender identity is also male. So that so I would be considered cisgender, which is obviously transgender. But if somebody was assigned male at birth, but now identifies as female, they would be considered transgender. How is sexual orientation different from gender identity? So a lot of times people might get those two confused and think that because your orientation is one way, then your gender identity is another way, right? But those two are different identities. They are completely different identities that do not correlate with one another. So your sexual orientation is representative of the heart, is who you love. Whereas again, the gender identity is with your head, it's how you identify. So an easy way to think about that as well is Orientation is who you go to bed with, whereas gender identity is who you go to bed as. Next, what does non-binary mean, and is it different from being transgender? Sometimes people think that these two terms are interchangeable, but they aren't. They're similar but different. So individuals, again, who are transgender, their gender identity does not correlate with what they assigned at birth. People who are non-binary means that their gender identity does not go along with the gender binary. So what does binary mean? Binary means two. So the gender binary is the idea that there are only two genders, male and female. So if somebody is non-binary, that means their gender identity goes against the idea of their own. So it's a little bit more of a broad term. Okay, so talking a little bit more about. So there are gendered pronouns and non-gendered pronouns. Gender pronouns, it's important to use the correct pronoun when referring to individuals because it shows respect and creates a more inclusive environment for everyone, right? The gender pronouns that most people are used to or know about are she, her, hers, herself, he, him, his, himself. But there are more gender neutral pronouns that some people who are transgender and non-binary would prefer to go as because it correlates with their gender identity, right? So I have some examples here. I do have this little bubble in the corner. Please note that these are not all the different pronouns that there are. There is an infinite number of pronouns. New ones are coming out all the time. So it's important to always ask somebody for their pronouns they prefer. But some of the most more common non-gender pronouns that you will encounter are they, them. I do have this other example, z, here, here's, or z, zers, zers. It's a little bit hard to say, but this one's more common over in Europe, specifically in areas like France. It more correlates with the French language. But I do want to emphasize they, them. This is the non-gender pronoun that you will see used here in America very often because they more correlate with the English language. For example, it's something that we already use. We already use these gender pronouns to refer to people who we don't know what their gender is. So for example, if you're running into, or if you're speaking with one of your students, one of your youths, and they're feeling a little upset, and you ask them what's going on, and they say, one of my friends was bullying me. What are you going to say? You're going to say like, oh, what did they do to me? Or what did they say? Because all they said was friend. They didn't, give a name. They didn't specify the gender. So you're automatically going to use that non-gender pronoun. So it already correlates with the. So it's one that you'll see most often. So a little bit more information or tips for allies on pronouns. Again, it's best to ask, don't assume, and we'll kind of go over some more ways on how to ask. If you can't ask, if you're in some sort of situation where you're seeing someone or meeting someone for the first time, that kind of thing, you can't ask. It is okay to, of course, use their name, but you can use the they, them pronoun since it's not gender and it's not specific. If you can use that if you aren't sure. It is important to normalize using they, them as often as you can, even in familial settings. So if you're at work or you're doing your CASA volunteering, then you're going to try and be as professional and inclusive as possible. But even in your normal areas where you're hanging out with family, friends, that kind of thing, to normalize using they, them when you're referring to people who are trans non-binary, who prefer those pronouns, and that kind of thing. Get comfortable being a little uncomfortable. Of course, when we're using or we know somebody who is using non-gender pronouns, we're not used to using them before, it can be a little uncomfortable. Or if we're meeting somebody for the first time, who might have non-gender pronouns, it takes a little time to get used to. But like anytime you're meeting somebody new, sometimes you're a little nervous. You're trying to meet new people. It can be a little uncomfortable. So just becoming a little bit more comfortable with that and getting past it and meeting people and treating them like you would anybody else. We all make mistakes. It's okay if you're making a mistake. Just apologize and move on. It's as long as you're trying equals instant perfection. If somebody knows that you're trying your best to use proper pronouns and you just aren't quite getting it yet, that they understand that you're trying, and that's okay. It would be bad if you weren't trying at all and you were just using whatever pronouns you wanted to push on that person. But the fact that you're even trying is great, Okay, so some tips on sharing. The easiest way is to do it at the part of introduction. So if you're gonna be meeting somebody for the first time and depending on their gender expression or aka how they're dressed and how they are acting, you might get a sense that they might not be cisgendered. So you're not sure exactly how to refer to them. The easiest way is when you're introducing yourself to also share your preferred pronouns. So if I was introducing myself to somebody, I'd say, hi, my name's Freddie. My pronouns are he, him. What's your name? And that kind of invites them to also share their preferred pronouns with you as well. Other ways are with correspondence. You're seeing a lot more people have their pronouns on their name tags, located in their email signatures. On social media is a big one. A lot more social media programs are actually platforms, are letting you put in your preferred pronouns, so that way people will know. And it's important to do that. So that's where again we're trying to normalize the use of non-gender pronouns. Okay, so going into statistics, this is an important part of the presentation, maybe a little bit more sad, but it is important to know why we should be supportive of individuals who are transgender and non-binary. So all this information comes from a study done by the Trevor Project, which is one of the biggest national programs in support of LGBTQ youth. So 42% of LGBTQ youth seriously consider attempting suicide each year, and more than half of those are transgender and non-binary youths. So looking at this graph here, the light blue is our LGBTQ youth that considered suicide, and the darker blue is those who actually attempted suicide. So we have it broken down by their gender identity versus their age. Gender identity, you can see there's a big difference between individuals who are cisgender, again, meaning that their gender identity does correlate with what they were assigned at birth, versus those who are transgender and non-binary. The cisgender youths, 32% will consider suicide, and then 10% will actually attempt. And the numbers do increase significantly for those who are transgender and non-binary. Attempted suicide goes up to 52%, that's more than half. And then the ones who actually attempt is 20%, so that's double those. Or cisgender. Then broken down by age, this specific survey was given to use from the age of 13 to 8 or 13 to 24. So they have it broken down between 13 and 17, which numbers are much higher for those of you. I mean, that's really young, these are kids. The attempted suicide percentage was 48, and the actual, considered was 48, attempted was 20, and those 18 to 24, 34% and 9%. So those who are a little bit older are the numbers a little bit lower, but since those are more young adult age, they are usually surrounded by more allies, more people who support. Some youths aren't, especially if versus like school at home, they might not get getting that support. Next, some more ways that we can help support the transgender and non-binary community is helping to affirm them. I can do that in 2 different ways. We can do that by respecting their pronouns. Of course, we talked about that, but also allowing them to be able to change their information and names, such as name and gender, on legal documents such as driver's licenses and birth certificates. So the next 2 pages kind of go together. So the first one will go over the percentages of students, youths who are with these different support systems. The first one covers being able to change their legal documents. So 57% are not legally able to do so because of usually laws in the state, or just not they're not getting permission or allowed to do that from their families. Compared to only 7% who are actually able to do so. 36 plan to do it, they just haven't. And then when it comes to people respecting their pronouns within their households, 49% have nobody in their households that actually support them by using their preferred pronouns, compared to 29% where they have everyone in their household support them, and then 22% only some of them. And that's important because going to the next slide, that correlates significantly with those suicide rates again. So transgender and non-binary youth who attempted suicide last year compared to the being able to change the legal documents, If they were not able to do so, 25% would attempt. That number goes down to 19. If they were planning to do so, just haven't done it yet. And the number goes down even more, 11% if they were able to change. Then looking at this other graph over here for people who live with and respect their pronouns. If they didn't have anybody to respect their pronouns, the suicide attempt rate is 24%. That goes down to having some people, 19%, and down to 13% if you had everyone in their household who were respecting their preferred pronouns. So you can see the direct correlation of why it's important to use these things to affirm transgender people and their identities, because it does have a direct correlation to these attempted suicides. Okay, next we're going into some tips, which I have several listed, and I'll try to go through them as quickly as possible so I don't take too much of your time. So, number one, you cannot tell if somebody is transgender just by looking at them. Again, that goes into assuming, and you should never assume anything about anyone, right? Tip number two, do not make assumptions about a transgender person's sexual orientation. Again, like I said before, sexual orientation, gender identity are two completely different things. One is not indicative of the other, so never assume those things either. Tip number three, do not ask a transgender person what their real name is. Just like you wouldn't go up to anybody else. Like if somebody introduced you and said, "Hi, my name is Steve," you wouldn't say, "No, you look more like an Albert to me, so I'm going to call you Albert." You wouldn't do that, right? Like that's just weird. So why would you do that to somebody who's transgender? And call them by the name that they prefer to go by. Tip number four, be careful about confidentiality, disclosure, and outing. Some of you might not be in a place of support. I know with CASA, obviously, it's different, but it's important no matter who you're talking to, because again, they might not have the support with their friends or even at home with their families. So if you're disclosing that information about them without consent or approval beforehand, you might be putting them in a tougher spot, or maybe putting them in more danger of some sort of assault. So it's always important to have that discussion with them, ask them who else have you had this conversation with, who knows, who doesn't, who do you want me to share, who's okay to share information with before. Tip number five, understand the differences between coming out as lesbian, gay, or bisexual versus coming out as transgender. Again, those are two different types of identity. One could come out because of their different type of orientation at one point in time, and then come out as transgender at another point in time. They are two very different things. Tip number six, respect the terminology people use to describe their identity, similar to how you should respect their names, whatever the terminology is, which today we went over a couple of basic terminology, but there are tons of different terms underneath the transgender umbrella. So some that you might not be familiar with, but just have that conversation with them. Hey, what does this mean? That way you can be a better ally to them by better understanding. Tip number seven, be patient with a person who is questioning or exploring their identity. Of course, if somebody's questioning themselves, that means they might not be sure what their identity is. They think that they might not be cisgender, but again, there's tons of terminology out there. So they're doing the research, they're finding themselves, they might not be sure yet. So just be patient with that person as they come to terms with who they are, and just be supportive regardless. Tip number eight, understand that there is no right or wrong way to transition, and that every person is different. So there's a lot of assumptions of people who are transgender, assuming that everyone goes through some sort of surgery or that the process is similar. But everyone who is transgender or non-binary, their transition period is completely different. Transition period could consist of sexual reassignment surgery, hormone therapy, that kind of thing. But some people might do one or all of those things. Some people are completely fine with how they are, and they understand that their biological sex is not indicative of their gender identity, and they're okay with that. So some people, actually a large number of people who are transgender do not ever have sexual reassignment surgery. So just understanding that everyone's transition is different and it's personal to them. Tip number nine, don't ask about a transgender person's genitals, cervical status, or sex life. Again, you would not do that to anybody normally. So why would you do it to people who are transgender? Just common sense. Tip number 10, avoid backhanded compliments and helpful tips. It's important to know our place has allies for the community to know that we aren't professionals, we don't know everything. So I mean, we can be helpful and supportive and ask them questions about how we can support them. But assuming that we know exactly what they're going through or exactly the type of help they need isn't something that we should do. And of course, backhanded compliments are never okay in any type of situation, but specifically things like if somebody comes at you as transgender saying, "Oh, I would think you're so beautiful for somebody who's transgender," or something like that. Like those are very backhanded compliments that should not be stated. Tip number 11, challenge anti-transgender remarks or jokes in public spaces. We kind of went over that already, but no matter what setting you're in, always call out people who are saying negative comments because it's important for them to for you to let them know that those aren't okay, right? And you don't have to get into serious arguments or debates or things like that. It can be something as simple as if you hear an appropriate joke, and say, "That's not that funny," or "Please don't say that. That's okay." And move on. Tip number 12, support all gender public restrooms. And this is referring specifically to restrooms that are labeled as all gender. Of course, we'll still have restrooms that are specifically for female, specifically for male, but a lot of what are normally referred to as like family restrooms are now being changed to all gender restrooms so that they are available specifically for those who would not feel safe entering a all male or all female restroom. So it's specifically for them. So if you know anyone, whether a business, a place of, any kind of public space that has or is thinking of giving an all gender restroom, be in support of that because that'll be a space for those people to go and they won't feel like they will be in any type of harm. Tip number 13. So help make your company or group truly trans inclusive. Of course, having somebody come and speak about this is a great example of doing this at the bank. But regardless of what other organizations, businesses, jobs that you're a part of, encourage people to be more trans inclusive. Whether it's taking trainings like this or just presentations, watching movies, reading books, like there's tons of different ways that you can learn more about the community and be a better ally just by educating yourself. To number 14, at meetings and events, have an inclusive tone. Same thing there, just like in a more professional setting, be that support. If you hear anything negative going on, call it out. Encourage people to educate themselves, share information with people as well. Tip number 15, listen to transgender people. Again, everyone is different. Everyone's experiences are different. People have more privilege than others. Everyone's transition is different. So depending on who you're talking to, whether they're you, friend, family, people you don't really know that well, just talk to them, get to know them, learn about their experiences, and help them as well as you can by getting to know who they are and what they do. And this is my last slide. Tip number 16, learn that transgender people are not new. I know the past decade since 2013, I believe, is when transgender was taken out of the DSM. So it's no longer considered a mental illness to be transgender. There's been a lot more support and advocacy for the group since then, since now they can be reach out and try to get more recognition. But since then, a lot of people think that this came out of nowhere, that it's a fad, that it's something new that's just going to be come and go. But it's not. Transgender people have been around forever. They just more recently have been able to fight for themselves, fight for equality because they're taken more seriously. Number 17, know your own limits as an ally. You won't be able to deal with every single situation, right? And this doesn't just go along with people who are transgender and non-binary needing support if they're dealing with serious things like assault, if they need to talk to counselors, things like that. You as an ally doesn't mean that you have to deal with those different crisis situations. We're not all counselors, we're not all Title IX coordinators or whatever. So knowing the different people to reach out to about where those people can get help. You aren't to be the end-all be-all resource just because you're an ally. So know about local organizations, national organizations that you can reach out to so that these youth can get the help that they need. you aren't, if you don't exactly have the answer. And lastly, tip number 18, kind of going over this a little bit, over the entire presentation, but continue to educate yourself. There is so much information out there to help you be a better ally, and you can get in many different ways, like I said. So if you want to know more about different organizations, I can definitely send information to Kelsey and Flora, so that way she can share it with you. But yeah, other than that, if you have any questions, please let me know. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Thank you for being here. That's very complex.
Yes. So again, a gender binary is the idea that there is only two genders, male and female. So people who believe in the gender binary believe that there's only two genders and there's nothing else out there. But of course, now we know that individuals can be transgender, they can be bigender, they can be agender. Like there's a lot of different terminologies and a lot of different gender identities out there. So the term non-binary simply means that they are somebody whose gender identity does not correlate with the idea of there only being two genders. Does that make a little bit more sense? Anybody else? Yes.
Since we don't have constant support, constant contact with our kids like on a daily basis. When we do visit or with one of our children that is going through this situation, what is the best thing we can do? Just whenever it's okay, just be yourself. Don't let people's expressions hurt you. These are young people, young children. I'm sure exactly how we can, what we can say to them.
Yeah, like what to say specific things to them. I mean, everything that you said would be perfectly great too. Just for youth who are pretty young, they might not, they're not going to have serious complications with, some of the issues that adults have. But they can be picked on, right? And told that they're not right, or if they are a trans girl, they might be people saying that, no, you're not, you're a boy, that kind of thing. Just being there and affirming their identity as much as you can, just letting people know that, or you letting them know that, I understand that you are a girl, and I believe you, and you are perfectly who you are. Don't listen to these people, they don't understand, that kind of thing. Just constantly reaffirming that of their gender and their need. So that way they know that their need is true.
And I know we can also encourage them to let their feelings be known and talk to their therapist if they see a therapist, not necessarily for that, for all of our kids, just that see therapists throughout their lives. But there again, oftentimes the therapists don't understand the situation. So, that be a way to encourage. It's not situation problems.
Yeah, exactly. And if they aren't getting the support you think that they should be getting from a counselor, again, reaching out to those different organizations. I know we have like Flora is part of the local LGBT Victoria organization that maybe has some people who are counselors within that space that are more apt to be more of an ally and support system. Or again, there's tons of like, maybe not tons, but there are a decent amount of national organizations. Anybody else? Yes.
What is the definition of
gender? Specifically is just a form of identity. Similar to like to race. It's a form of identity based on genetics, but gender is more specific based on identity to me, that's just an identifier, part of somebody's identity. I mean, it could definitely be more.
specific word? And I try to have a definition of identity.
I mean, I don't have the exact definition off the top of my head, but yeah, I think it's definitely important to realize that it's important to have this conversation so that we understand that there are different options, so we can better be allies for people who might be in minority groups. But at the end of the day, they're just forms of identity, similar to like somebody's race, somebody's religious preference, somebody's political preference. Everyone's different, and everybody's identity is important to them. So just be cognizant of that and understanding of that.
I'm just trying to figure out what gender or gender, it doesn't have anything to do with race, it doesn't have anything versus political beliefs. I don't know either. I haven't looked it up. That's why I don't know what it means.
Well, the dictionary definition of is male or female.
That's what I.
That's the standard
always
definition.
assumed for 77 years.
So when I talk about in my courses, we do, like, your sex is biological, right? That's how you're born, then your gender is. When we talk about how to identify how society expects you to identify, right? Like with female gender, we expect them to wear makeup, we expect them to wear dresses, we expect them to be homemakers. Whereas male genders, we expect them to be tougher and kind of tighter, and things like that. So we see, like, when we talk about gender products, like women's stuff with pink, or stuff with blue, right? So it's just like that's, I think that's what you're trying to say about identity is, but it's more like society, how society sees us.
It's definitely
Over time, we started to realize it's not just people, right? There's a lot of different options.
so there's a lot of changes going on right now. Just like what we're saying, like gender is usually assigned at birth because we think that biological sex equals gender. So you're still based on your external genitalia when you're born, you will be labeled as male and female because that's still the older idea of what gender is. But we now know that's different, and those definitions are changing. Yes.
I like to use the Trevor Project a lot when it comes to dealing with LGBT youth. Can you explain a little bit about the Trevor Project?
Yeah, so they're I think they're the oldest organization, national organization that support specifically LGBTQIA+ youth across the nation. So they have different areas and offices in much bigger states. And usually in big cities, and there's also small chapters around the country, but they're specifically for this age group, 13 to about 24, I believe. So being that support system, whether it's getting students or youth in touch with counselors, helping them find new homes, getting in touch with organizations like CASA to find the support they need.
Almost coming from the speaker was like.
Yes.
One of the things I observed sexual correlation. I believe that's see themselves as rather than she have to be doing. That's kind of the reflection. I don't know if that's.
So like depending on their, I guess if somebody is trans male, then they have more protection against assault than people like trans female. I'm sure there is maybe some studies, and I can try and look more into that too. And none of the research that I've done specifically for all of my presentation trainings that I've come across that, but there might. Anybody else? All right, well, I have a couple of business cards, and I'm